In this video today, I'm going to review four biomarkers that help with determining the COVID-19 severity, and I'm going to discuss one new one that I haven't discussed before. There's some evidence that I found on the MLR, the Monophyte lymphocyte ratio, and some CT scan publications, and I think it was in April, and they reviewed about 30 or 40 markers, and they found the MLR very predictive with an excellent p-value, I'm also going to distinguish what I'm doing from other publications in that I'm actively biohacking. I'm a self-hacker, and I'm trying myself to influence these markers. And I'm having some successes and some failures. And I don't think we could really say they're failures because the substances I'm using, most of them they have compounds in them or metabolites of the compounds that we're familiar with for probably millions of years. Because they occur in plants that we eat. So the body's not going to immediately say, this is something foreign, and start creating antibodies. And I want to put forward that hypothesis that's the reason why so many natural substances don't cause us severe side effects, because we have an evolutionary familiarity with them. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into I got some new data back earlier this week, and some of the results were pretty disturbing. So I had to kind of sit on the data for a couple days and go through a little bit of denial, and I'll get into that also. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start with the raw data. And the biggest thing that stood out to me immediately was that the neutrophils and the platelets had gone up by, they're all the way on the left at the bottom. They had gone up by 31% and 29%. And the lymphocytes and the monocytes stayed the same. So that's, I don't know what to make of that. But some of the other raw data is the galectin 3 did drop about 8%. And but some other bad news is the percent free PSA for the third or fourth test dropped, and that's not good. So it's dropped over 30% since March. So I'm having to take some somewhat radical steps to address that. And the first thing I'm doing is introducing some very vigorous fasting into my lifestyle. This will be the fourth day in a row I haven't eaten a full meal. I feel really good. The day before that, I ate one full meal, and 2 days before that, I didn't eat any. So out of, out of 7 days, I've eaten one meal. And my weight's dropping about a pound a day. Now, I'm starting to make bulletproof coffee. I make a decaf twice a day with about 3 or 4 tablespoons of MCT oil. And that helps a lot too with suppressing appetite. So I'm not having a lot of cravings. I slept really well last night. I got my handy dandy Fitbit, and I'm also using a V19 to track some of these things. And I slept really good. So now we'll proceed here into the let's see here. Now that's the raw data. So I think I presented it in a way that everybody can scroll back, and in the future people can review it and see that this is hopefully people think this is decent science. Okay, let me see now here. I got to get this a little bit higher. Sorry about that. I have to decide all the time, am I going to spend a couple hours on a new software that I'm not familiar with? Or am I going to, spend time on this? Well, this shows the neutrophils, how much they went up. Now, I haven't figured out in Excel yet how the platelets actually went up more. But because it's at a lower number, this is what Excel does. There's probably a little trick that you can get it to scale properly. If anybody knows, leave a comment. Now this is the NLR and LMR. That's the neutrophil lymphocyte ratio and the lymphocyte monocyte ratio. So this is my first, I'm trying to see if I'm seeing some kind of going back, because they're moving opposite each other. So you can see here they moved opposite, here they moved opposite, they moved opposite. Now all of a sudden, here they didn't. The lymphocyte ratio went up when the NLR didn't change. So that's kind of interesting. And then over here at the very end, because the neutrophils went up so much, the NLR went up a lot. And the lymphocyte-monocyte ratio didn't change. Now this thing here, the LMR is becoming important because of the CT scan publication. Because the LMR is the reverse of MLR, the monocyte-lymphocyte ratio. And this LMR, this showed up in one of Dr. Fahey's publications. He has the first publication demonstrating the reversal of aging by the, basically they kind of rebooted the thymus gland. And he talked quite a bit about LMR in this publication as far as its relationship to about 6 or 7 different types of cancer. The higher, the better. And they did get the average of the patients in the study, I think they were like 10 or 11, and this was a human study. Their average of their LMR went up above 5.0. I think you can see my LMR is nowhere near that. These numbers over here are accurate. Okay, so the LMR or the MLR is becoming something we should examine. Now here's the PSA, the percent free PSA. It's showing from March till October, it's dropped over 30%. That's why I said now I've introduced I increased the curcumin as the long vita by 500 milligrams a day, and I'm going to increase the modified citrus pectin by 10%. But I'm also going to start pulsing the modified citrus pectin because I'm not sure that from an evolutionary point of view, we're familiar with the hinocchiol, which is an extract from the magnolia tree. I think it's Magnolia officinalis. And the modified citrus pectin, I'm not sure that we're familiar with that. So just to be safe, I'm going to start pulsing that. I'll take it for 5 days and then take a break for 2 days in case my body is building up a resistance. Okay, now here's the, I showed this in an earlier video, the SII and NLR. The SII has shown up in COVID-19 studies, and the NLR in at least 4 or 5 of them. Okay, So that's showing how they got worse in the last 2 weeks. Well, that's because the neutrophils went up and the platelets went up. Now this one is showing, this is where I got the results back for the galectin-3. The galectin-3 dropped about 8%. And then I have some of the other ones. This is where it's showing how they work. These two work in opposite to each other. And then here's the PSA. The PSA went up a little bit in the last test. Now, I don't know what's going on. But like I said, I'm at the cutting edge here. I don't think anybody else is doing things like this. I don't know why. But maybe people think I'm crazy. But anyway, I'm trying to be proactive and avoid the cardiac fibrosis and the brain damage, and I'll get into that more later. Now this is about homocysteine. So I'm gonna because this is pretty critical. I was able to extract part of the actual numbers from the table in this publication, which is at the bottom. And I'm going to stop putting links so frequently, because if YouTube ever gets hacked, you know, that's how they the hackers, they'll hijack the link, and then you click on a link that's been hijacked, and you wind up getting your computer taken over. So I'm going to use them some, but I'm going to gradually use them less and less links. But there's the title of the publication. So anybody who wants to look that up can. Now, in this particular study, which was on the CT scans, that's just a sophisticated X-ray, so they can see the lung damage. And lung damage is a big deal in COVID-19. That's one of the first things to be damaged, to be injured. So now, yeah, we can see the within the progression group, the average homocysteine is 10.7. There were 71 people in this. And then the progression-free group, the average homocysteine is 9.3 with 202. And the p-value is 0.005. That's a very healthy p-value. That means this evidence is pretty reliable. So, yeah, I thought this was worth highlighting. When these parameters were included in the multivariate model, age, MLR, and homocysteine were significantly correlated with the imaging progression on chest CT from COVID-19 patients. Then they list the RR, I think that's relative risk. The RR for the second one, for the MLR, was pretty high, 7.69. Then also from day of onset to admission, if it's greater than 4 days or equal to, they might have a lower risk. So now I've got the title of the paper there. Now here's the actual table. This will show you, gives an idea of how many things they measured in this study. I mean, it's a lot. Okay, and then here's something that stood out to me also. Now, one is that the D-dimer, the Dr. Salt, S-E-H-E-U-L-T, he's talked about D-dimer, and the D-dimer did show up in one study of severe versus mild as having more value than the NLR. So the D-dimer is but in this particular study of the CT scans, the D-dimer had a very poor p-value. Now the other thing that stood out in this publication was this is the MLR. They actually I've got it circled in yellow. So we can actually see some of the data about the MLR. That's the Monophyte lymphocyte ratio. Okay, I've been following the other one, the opposite, the LMR for about a year because it had a pretty high value related to prostate cancer risk. So I'm somewhat familiar with that one. Okay, so now we have, these were some this is from a histopathological findings in COVID-19 patients, a systematic review. So a systematic review is considered one of the most valuable peer-reviewed publications. And the thing that stood out to me in this publication is the number of fibrosis cases and the number of references that they have after the 85 cases. Where is that? Oh no, I got the wrong Oh, sorry. Yeah, here it is. Sorry about that. 85 cases, 50%. So that's the title of the paper is down here. That's a systematic review. I forget what month that was. Now this one is now this is another one that's showing giving us some new information on this is new information about the cardiac. And in this particular publication, they found abnormalities in the lungs, 60%, and in the heart, 26%. This is 2 to 3 months after disease onset. The name of the publication is the bottom. This is from October 18th. And they did mention the Putman-Nahi study from, I think it was last August. And with all this evidence about cardiac damage, and in this, I think it was in this publication discussed a lot about the some brain problems. I don't think the herd immunity is a good idea because for people with mild disease, the consequences are pretty severe for a large proportion. Okay, now this is now I hope this is coming out clear enough so people can scroll back and see the. Now this is about the nitric oxide, and despite an explosion of associative studies involving the microbiome in vascular and cardiovascular disease, few connections have been identified with mechanistic certainty. But now further down we see further recent insight into the biochemical reactions and signaling actions of nitrate, nitrite, and nitric oxide reveal that the bioavailability of inorganic nitrate and nitrate, the major sources of exogenous nitric oxide, is dependent on the metabolic activity of specific oral microbiota. So the oral microbiota, that's the bacteria in our mouths. So I'm starting to chew a lot slower than I normally wolf down the food. And in some mouthwashes, there's a substance in there, I forget the name of it, that kills these critical bacteria in our mouths. Okay, so I thought that would be interesting. That's kind of fresh. Okay, now this is about trying to understand the paradox of a lot of these Asian countries. I mean, I think a lot of people know that Vietnam, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, China. I heard on NPR a few days ago that China's economy is almost fully recovered, and they're predicting a growth this year of between 2 and 3% in the GDP. But this, in contrast with Europe and US, the capital death rate from COVID-19 appears so far low in East Asia, including Japan. The Japan paradox has recently received much attention from researchers as well as from the public. So they're saying it can be hypothesized that nitrate-rich dietary foods in those countries may supplement nitric oxide bioavailability through the NOS-independent mechanisms. Japanese diet containing abundant nitrates has been reported to improve hypertension and other vascular diseases. Until specific drugs are developed for COVID-19, blood nitrate and nitrite that modulates NO bioavailability are worthy of consideration not only for clinical treatment, but also for prevention of SARS-CoV-2 infection. And I have the title of the publication there. So this is pretty interesting. I talked about nitrate, nitric oxide in the last publication. Nitric oxide is very high. I mean, not nitric oxide. Nitrates are very high in some of the leafy greens and in beets, and especially in the greens of beets, which some of our local organic stores do sell. They sell it with the greens. And it isn't like they're 10 times as much as in other foods, but it's like twice as much. So it's not like you're going to get I found some beet root powder, online, and it should arrive in a couple days without the sugar, because beets have a lot of sugar. Okay, so I thought that was pretty interesting. It's helping us understand, and this is something we can do something about without spending a lot of money. Now here's one about ultraviolet A radiation. Interestingly, it has been reported that ambient ultraviolet A radiation exposure is associated with lower COVID-19 specific mortality, independent of vitamin D. UVA triggers generation of nitric oxide from NO stores in the skin. This is released into the blood circulation, increasing the bioavailability of NO and reducing blood pressure. And the title of the publication is there. So nitric oxide, that's something we can... Now I'm getting back into discussing the galectin-3, because actually the galectin-3 is emerging as possibly the prime therapeutic target that we should be trying to impact. And I found 3 publications on YouTube. I'll review them later on, by 2 by doctors and 1 by a professor. And they just were, all 3 of them were excellent. They were just packed with helpful information. One of them I had to watch twice because it was really technical. And he's a doctor, boy. Some of these doctors, I don't know how they find the time. But I'll mention their names later, the 3 of them. Now, with it, he had a couple publications there. I looked up, I downloaded them, printed them out, or reviewed them, in a PDF viewer. And these are some of the, some of the things I'm highlighting, he highlighted in his review also. So I have a feeling that even though he was emphasizing the cytokine storm, intentionally spending a lot of time and effort on that, he also, I think, was looking for things that suggest that galectin-3 is an actual major influencer in the process of disease. It's not just a biomarker. It's not just a marker. So As a secreted protein, galectin-3 can act in an autocrine manner to activate macrophages to secrete higher levels of pro-inflammatory and chemoattractant molecules. The structural properties of galectin-3 are ideal in allowing this molecule to activate cells in a pro-inflammatory manner. That's the first time I've seen activate. Now, early on, I was starting to see, besides associate, I was seeing participate, then I was seeing promote, but this is the first time I saw activate. Galectin-3 appears to play an active role in the propagation of inflammation. Propagation, that's much stronger than association, as it induces the expression of a variety of well-characterized pro-inflammatory mediators by human macrophages. This observation provides further evidence that galectin-3 is responsible for the amplification of the expression of such inflammatory mediators within the atherosclerotic plaque. Wow. So I'll mention his name later. I got to really thank him for that discovery. Oh, here it is. Dr. Yogendra. I think he calls himself Dr. Yo. And then, within his publication, yeah, that's a comment that he made at the top there in answering, in replying to comments. Thank you very much. I've been talking with my ICU colleagues about testing serum galectin levels, and some are starting to. I think we can potentially stratify risk using galectins. This is just a fantastic publication on YouTube. I forget, I think it was like, I think it was only 20 minutes. Boy, did he pack a lot in there. Now, the next one down, that's Dr. Peter McCullough. And his publication is actually from 2015. That's a really good place to get started, to become familiar with galectin-3. And he wrote that publication mostly for medical professionals. So it is pretty technical. I think I had to watch that one twice also. Now, let's see what I got here. Okay, this is galectin-1 blocks leukocyte chemotaxis, whereas galectin-3 has the opposite effect, inducing leukocyte chemotaxis and the release of preformed interleukinate from neutrophils, which further augments chemotaxis of leukocytes. Now, I think I had to look up 3 or 4 new words on this, but it's so easy, you know, with Google now. We just say, hey, Google, what does this word mean? What's the definition of this word? So I got the title of that publication. Oh, no, that's galectin-3 enhances the extravasation of neutrophils, and galectin-3 no mice also exhibit attenuated leukocyte infiltration following challenge. So yeah, I think I had to look up 3 words on that page. That's a good day when you have to look up 3 words, right? Right? This is because this isn't a course. You're not getting tested. This is yeah, and the title of the paper is there. And then I think this is the last one. This is galectin-1 blocks leukocyte chemotaxis, where galectin-3 has the opposite effect. Oh, no, I already read that. Oh, here we go. I'm reading from the wrong page. That was Dr. Mobeen Syed. He calls himself Dr. Ben, B-E-A-N. Excellent. Now, within that publication, one of the scientists who has published 2 papers on galectin-3 and COVID-19, John Caniglia, I think is his name, he had 12 comments there at that post, and they were excellent. Now, this is, I did a little bit of search in in a peer-reviewed library. And for galectin-3 and COVID-19, there were 57 publications. For nitric oxide and COVID-19, there were 1,519. For NLR, COVID-19, there were 498. For homocysteine, COVID-19, there was 134. And for rutin, COVID-19, there were 33. I didn't discuss rutin. I'm looking into it now. And I think that pretty much does for what I wanted to present today. Once again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not recommending anybody do anything. I've tried to review 4 of the main markers of galectin-3. I mean of COVID-19 severity and a new one. And I'm really looking forward to other people that start self-hacking and either post their own video. I'll come there and, make a comment and join in, or